That the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. The contrary opinion will say no. No. The ayes have it. Party vote is requested. Clerk, will you please conduct a party vote?
New Zealand National.
58 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
43 votes opposed.
Green Party.
9 votes opposed.
ACT New Zealand.
5 votes in favour.
Maori Party.
Toko whai, tau toko ana.
Progressive.
1 vote opposed.
United Future.
1 vote in favour.
Any other votes?
Thank you. Members, the ayes are 68, the noes are 53. The bill will be read a first time.
Environment Canterbury, Temporary Commissioners and Improved Water Management Bill, first reading.
This bill is set down for second reading forthwith.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Environment Canterbury, Temporary Commissioners and Improved Water Management Bill be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, this bill is about the government taking leadership on the critical issue of water management in Canterbury. It firstly provides for the appointment of commissioners to be led by Dame Margaret Baisley to take over the functions of the governance of Environment Canterbury. It also provides for legal recognition of the Canterbury Water Management Strategy and gives the additional powers to the new Commission to really get on top of water management issues in Canterbury, and I want to talk in some detail about those additional powers. I firstly want to thank members of the opposition for supporting the urgency motion. I know they in their heart of hearts know that there are real problems with Environment Canterbury and that the steps that the government is taking are the responsible approach not just for Canterbury but for New Zealand. I want to draw the House's attention to the quite proper statement by the former Environment Minister Trevor Mallard, who said, quote, "Everyone knew there was a problem there." And what's been so lacking from the contributions of members of the opposition is what is their answer to the problems of water management in Canterbury. Because for the 9 years that Labour was in office, it is well documented in the reports that were provided by the Ministry for the Environment. It's well documented in the commentary of declining water quality. It is well documented the problems with Environment Canterbury going back at least a decade. And my simple challenge to members opposite is, when you were entrusted of the governments of New Zealand, what did you do? I also have to confront the perspective that was put forward that this is an outrageous affront to democracy. That's what the Labour Party has said. Well, my question for them is this: was it an outrageous affront to democracy when the previous government on the 4th of May 2000 passed special legislation under urgency through all stages to replace the Rodney District Council with a commission and to make changes to the elections? And I say to members opposite, was it an affront to democracy when Helen Clark dismissed the democratically elected Auckland District Health Board? Was that an affront to democracy? And I say to members opposite, when the previous government sacked the Hawke's Bay District Health Board, was that an affront to democracy? You see, an honest answer is that there are times when this Parliament needs to step in to elected bodies so that we can lift the standard of management. A fair question that myself and the Minister of Local Government have applied our mind to is, has the threshold for government intervention been reached around water management in Canterbury? And I'd point out these key facts to members opposite. It is a matter of record that in the 2007-2008 biennial report on resource management, that Environment Canterbury ranked number 84 of 84 councils. That report, commissioned during the time of the previous government, showed that the Environment Canterbury was breaking the law a lot more often than it was complying with it under the Resource Management Act. I'd also challenge members of the Greens, because 18 years after the passage of the Resource Management Act, we still do not have an operative water plan for Canterbury. And I'd be interested to know from a member of the Greens as to how that helps. How does it help for the environment in our region that has more pressures on water than anywhere else in New Zealand for us to have no plan? 18 years after the passage of the RMA, we still do not have a set of rules. And I make no apologies as a member of this government to say it's time we had a water plan in place in Canterbury, and I'm pleased to be working with Rodney Hyde, with my colleagues in Canterbury, to ensure that we do get that plan. I want to address quite specifically the additional powers that are provided in this bill to try and improve water management in Canterbury. The first of those is to specifically address the issue of getting to a workable plan. I'm advised that on the current legislative framework it'll be another 2 or 3 years before it would be possible to conclude a plan for water in Canterbury. Are members on this side of the House happy to sit back for the next 2 or 3 years and see an ad hoc approach to water management for the next 3 years? No, we are not, and that is why this bill provides for powers to fast-track the completion of the Canterbury regional strategy and very importantly, the natural resources plan that would provide for the completion of that plan. A further extra provision that is provided for in this bill is provision for targeted moratoria to be able to be introduced by the commissioners in areas where water has either been fully allocated or is near to that point. And I say to this House that where we've got a resource that's under the sort of pressure that we have in Canterbury, that is exactly the sort of short-term intervention that is required. The honest answer to farmers applying for water in Canterbury in some areas is actually to say no. There is no water left. The resource has been completely allocated. And in my view, that is a responsible and proper thing for the Commission to do in parts of Canterbury where additional drawing from the aquifer system is not sustainable, not in the long-term interests of Canterbury and nor in the long-term interests of New Zealand. There are further provisions in this bill with respect to water conservation orders, and it's important to put to the House what those provisions are and why the government has included them in this bill. The first point about water conservation orders is that they have been quite deliberately used in frustration in Canterbury because there has not been a water plan. There have been groups that have been so frustrated that they have been unable to be able to get some constraint on the development of water that they've wanted to get a water conservation order in place. And the challenge I have to members opposite is, how does it make sense for us to appoint commissioners to take charge of water management in Canterbury, to write a regional plan, and then to have a separate process off somewhere else deciding where there will be water conservation orders that will have a big impact in terms of those plans? What this bill says is that water conservation orders that are received during the period of the Commission will be referred to them. Now, members opposite are saying this is some great power grab. I'd remind members the decision to refer a water conservation order comes to the Minister for the Environment. Yes, a politician. The final decision under the existing law The final decision under the existing law will be that water conservation orders are decided by the